All right, guys, tip number 1, 6-star your starter champion. The only way you wouldn't do this is if you're some whale that goes and buys a bunch of shards right out the gate. You pull a bunch of shards and you get some crazy good champions. But the key is you're going to be able to max out this champion's skills fairly easily compared to like a legendary or an epic. So legendaries aren't going to be as OP for you in the early game as they will be in the later game. They will still be very good, but they aren't going to have a lot of the advantages that they would have over these champions until later when you can get a lot of legendary books. All of your starter champions can solo the campaign, so as long as you put them in lifesteal gear, build them with 100% crit rate, so as long as you can get their speed over 220, you give them 100% crit rate, they're going to farm the campaign for sure. You can run them slower, but you have to build them stronger, so more damage. And the quicker they are, the more damage they have, the faster they'll do that job. There will be champions that you can farm it with faster later, but don't worry about that yet. For starters, you just want to be able to farm the campaign. So that's where 6 stars comes in. And if you haven't picked yet, pick Kale. He is easily the easiest starter champion to start with because of the poisons, and that'll come in later. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Beginner tip number 2 is in the Barbarian faction is Warmaiden. Warmaiden is a farmable champ, and it's really kind of amazing that they let you farm a champion that has a 100% chance of placing decreased defense on a skill. And on top of that, she puts it on for 2 turns and it's on a 3-turn cooldown. This is really important in the early game. You aren't going to be able to hit as hard as you want to. By her breaking the defense of your opponents, you're going to be able to hit them basically twice as hard. It's going to be much, much easier to get through the waves. It's going to be much easier to get through like the dragon and the ice golem and those guys if they don't have their maximum defense. So she's really important. Also in arena, she's going to be able to break the defense of your opponents, and as long as you're going faster than they are, you're going to be able to take down most of your opponents in the arena. Now, you don't have to 6-star her. There's a lot of champions in the game that do defense break, but it's so important that you have this, that unless you get lucky and pull another champion that does that early, you're going to want to use her. And it also needs to be a champion that you can get that to be at 100% chance. You're really not going to want in the early game to be leaving it to chance whether or not the decreased defense goes on who you're attacking. Farm the dragon as soon as possible. The minute you are strong enough to take down Dragon 20, you should be farming it constantly. Until then, you know, even when you get to like Dragon 15 and higher, you should be at least farming it sometimes. The dragon drops some really important gear. Lifesteal being one of the first ones. You're not going to be able to do anything in Clan Boss in the early game without lifesteal. Everybody on your team that does damage at least will probably be in lifesteal, and you know, you're really going to want to be able to keep your champions alive. This is also what will be on your campaign farmer. It's what's going to help keep you alive in arena in those early games when you aren't able to take everybody out in one shot, that kind of a thing. The other one is speed gear. Speed gear is super important. It's a filler set, but you can also use it as a 6-piece set, and it speeds you up incredibly. It really is going to help you hit the speeds you need to not get lapped by your opponents in the early game. Outside of that, you can find a use for just about all of these sets. Destroy is not the best, and Daze is not the best, but on the right champion with the right group, Daze can actually be pretty good. So basically what you want to do is get as much speed and as much lifesteal gear as you can in the early game. Eventually, lifesteal gear is going to fall off for you. You won't use it a ton in the late game, but speed will never fall off. So every good piece of speed gear you get will still be a good piece of speed gear as you go on. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want a poisoner. If you picked Kale, congratulations. Kale is going to take down the dragon fairly easily. You'll shut off his A2 so that he just uses his A3 and his A1, and that way he'll only be applying poisons and he won't be wasting any moves on just strict damage. If you didn't pick Kale, invest in a poisoner. That's going to be your fastest way to getting through Dragon 20. Tip number 4 is stage 20. This is the case for all of the dungeons. Stage 20 is the most efficient way to get silver out of the dungeons. It's the most efficient way to get gear out of the dungeons, and it's the most efficient way to spend your energy in tournaments, so winning tournaments and things like that. It's not until the late or end game that you really even want to worry about like level 25 dungeons or level 24 dungeons. Those are also very viable later in the game, but early on you're going to want stage 20 over them for sure, because quantity of gear is going to be really important. Tip number 5 for Minotaur's Labyrinth: once you have teams set up for this, you're going to want to use energy over gems, and as soon as you can have a champion solo the Minotaur, that's even better. That way you can actually earn the XP for your other champions that you're leveling up while they get their scrolls. However, in the very beginning of the game, you want to get masteries for your starter champion as quickly as possible. So what you're going to want to do is buy those scrolls instead, or buy their masteries. It's going to be 800 gems, and it's roughly, I think, 600 gems worth of energy if you actually run it through Minotaur. Now, the reason you want to buy it for your starter champ is it's going to take you a full team in the beginning to get through these stages. So while you're doing that, you're going to be getting masteries for Kale, but you're also going to be getting masteries for other champions. And only one champion gets the mastery scrolls. So it's just going to take you way longer to get full masteries on your starter champion. So it's going to be a lot longer until you can like max out their potential. Tip number 6 is the best XP farm in the game. The best XP farm is Bruital 12. Actually, the best XP farm in the game per energy is Bruital 12.6. Prior to that, it's going to be whatever level you're at. So if you can't get to Bruital 12.6 yet, just keep progressing and do the highest level you have. If you want the best balance of silver and XP, then it's actually Bruital 12.3, because shields are worth more than any other equipment. For some reason, shields are just more valuable in this game. So by farming the shields, you're getting the best balance of silver and XP. So make sure early on you get somebody who can farm this. Kale or your starter champion should be able to do the trick. Once you 6-star them, get them their masteries, and get them to 100% crit rate. And then after that, you want to get them as fast as you can. So 220, I believe, will lap the enemy, so they'll get to go twice for every turn that the enemy takes, and that will actually lower the threshold of how much damage you need to do literally in half, so you don't need to hit nearly as hard to accomplish those goals. Beginner tip number 7 is the best silver farm in the game. This is Spider 20. Spider 20 is the best silver farm in the game. It's better than 21 through 25. However, the best balance of gear and silver is actually level 24. 25 is the best way to get legendary equipment, like the highest percentage of legendary equipment you can get would be level 25. However, when it comes to actually cashing in and selling your banners, your rings, your amulets, and getting silver for it, Spider 20 beats everything else by miles. So put a lot of time into Spider 20 if you need silver once you can farm Spider 20. All right, tip number 8 is in Arena. You're going to want to start out with a speed booster, preferably one that can put attack up on. So Gorgorab, I think, is a really good one for this. There's other ones as well. And you want them to have a speed lead. So it's really important, especially as long as you're building a speed team, you want to have a speed lead. Arbiter is one of the best in the game for that. So we're going to boost ourselves to go faster. That helps your other champions catch up. And then you're going to want to have a defense down. In this case, we're also lowering their attack as well. And then another thing that can go either before that or after that is some form of CCing. So in this case, we're going to stun them. He hits pretty hard, so he killed a bunch of them. And then the last thing you want is your nuker. If you can, it's good to have an AoE nuker. Kale can fill this. Galek, all of the starter champions can. And then they're going to come in and smash. So basically, speed your team up, lower their defense, CC them, or CC them, then lower their defense, and then hit them with an AoE. If you can, Madame Ceres is a great one for this. She will strip and she'll do the defense down. So if you have somebody that can strip the buffs off of them, you don't have to worry about them having a buff up that will prevent you from doing what you want to do. But the main thing is, you can start, like I say, with like a spirit host or somebody like that to give you the speed lead. And then, next you can have that Warmaiden do the defense down. Hopefully you've got somebody for CC. I don't know who that would be in the early game off the top of my head. And then you'd have your starter champion nuke them down. Tip number 9 is when to summon and what to summon. In the early game, you're going to be summoning mystery shards like crazy. You aren't going to be able to level up and build up your champions without fodder champions. So do that. And if you're not spending a lot in this game, I would definitely recommend even, taking your literal commons, the ones that are 1 star, and leveling some of them up into 2 stars, because you're going to be running out of champions to feed. It's just a fact in this game. If you are pulling every ancient shard you get and you're spending some money, you're buying some shards, you probably won't need to do that. You can just focus on the uncommons, which are the 2 stars, and leveling them up to 3 stars. You're also going to get 2 stars and 3 stars from the campaign while you're farming. So that is another part of the equation as well. Now, the only time, and this is really the tip, the only time you want to pull outside of a 2 times chance for any of these, but especially ancient shards, really especially ancient shards, is during a fusion. If you're going for the fusion, make sure you know if you feel you can do it. If you're going for the fusion, then of course you're going to have to pull when you have to pull. And if that's what you have that you can pull, then great. You're going to get a guaranteed legendary out of that. And they're, fusion champions are usually pretty good. So there's nothing wrong with that. The other time you would pull outside of it is, yes, in the early game, you're going to find yourself at some times where you're just completely dry and having even just 1 3-star champion to get you to your next 4 or to get you to that 6-star or whatever. If you have to pull a couple of them that way, that's okay. The chances and the odds are really, really low for ancient shards to get epics or legendaries. During 2x, legendaries are 1% chance. During regular times, it's a 0.5 chance. It's going to be the same that you'll see here on the voids. And then your epics, it's only an 8% chance. So you're not even getting 1 out of 10 epics. So that's really, really bad odds for that. When it's during 2x, you go up to a 16% chance for epics and a 1% chance for legendaries. The legendary one, not as important to me. You're either going to get lucky or you're not. You still have a 1 in 100 chance to pull one. In fact, today I literally pulled 101 shards during 2x and didn't get a legendary. However, I got a ton of epics. I pulled in most of my 10 pulls, I got at least 2 epics. Some of them I got 4 epics. So I way outbeat the odds. You can't expect to do better than 16%, but it's a far cry from that 8% chance. When you have less than a 1 in 10 chance every time you do a 10 pull, it feels like, and I don't know how the math works, but it feels like you're going to go all blue, all blue, all blue almost every time. Like it's brutal. Like getting 8% epics seems generous in that case. Like, I don't know what it is, if it's just the fact that you have a less than a 1 in 10 chance of doing it, but it's horribly bad. So yes, you're getting the points towards your fusion event, but you're also getting a lot less epics, which means a lot less potentially really good champions and a lot less food that's already 4-star that you don't have to level up to become 4-star. So epics are really important in this game for both food and because a lot of epics are really, really good. Some of them are better than legendaries. So it's really important to only pull during 2x unless you have a really compelling reason to do it. Times not to pull. Unless you're a whale and you don't care how much money you spend and you don't care how many shards that you're going to pull to get what you want, unless you're a whale, do not ever choose to pull because of a 10 times event. I don't care how good that champion is. Your odds of getting that champion, even if you get a legendary, is still like 1 in 10 or 1 in 20. It's awful. Even during 10x. There are champions that I've wanted for 3 years and I still don't have in this game. And I've pulled quite a few times during 10Xs because of the fusion events. And I've one time pulled the 10X champ out of maybe 10 times pulling during that time, or maybe it's more, maybe it's 20. I've only gotten one of those 10X champs. So, and I pulled a lot of legendaries during that. It's just your odds are against you. So don't pull during 10X events unless you have another reason to pull, like a fusion. Tip number 10 is the forge. This is really important. You're going to get the materials for this by playing the game. Basically, they kind of rack up in a lot of different ways. The important ones you're going to get fairly constantly throughout this game is going to be perception. You're going to get these guys here. All right. And then resilience. You're going to get these guys here. In the early game, don't shy away from resilience. It's great. I would still pick perception over resilience most of the time, but extra 10% HP and extra 10% defense, especially if you have a tanky champ with good stats, that's going to add up pretty strong. And it's a 2-piece set, so you can use it as a filler as well. You could even use these 2 sets together. So the other one is perception. You're getting 5% speed for each 2-piece set. This adds up to 15%. If you have a speed set, that's 12%. So speed set obviously equals more speed than perception, but perception also has plus 40 accuracy. That's incredibly strong on your Kale, on your Warmaiden, things like that. Even as the filler set for Kale, like you'll probably have him in Lifesteal. And as a filler set, you've probably got Kale in Lifesteal, right? So he can stay alive, but you're still going to have 2 slots left. You can use this here. That's an extra 40 accuracy. A lot of your champions you're going to be building to 250, between 200 and 250 accuracy because of those, level 20 to 25 dungeons. So whatever you need to do to get that accuracy there and still keep the speed, that's great. So we did not have this forge. This set did not exist in the game when I started. And I've heard from a lot of newer players that this has made the game much, much easier for them. If you don't have the accuracy to land your abilities, you're not going to land them. And then you're just going to be, running into a brick wall constantly. So perception is one of the most important sets in the game, and you get it kind of free. The other cool part is you get to put your gems in here. So you can put your rank charm, your rarity charm in. You can pick the top row items. So weapon, helmet, shield will give you your best chance at getting usable pieces. Obviously, if what you really need is like crit damage gloves, then you could put them on there. But the gloves are much more likely to roll like a flat stat that you're not going to want to use. So anyway, that is the forge, specifically, especially perception. So don't forget about the forge. Also, any of the items you don't end up using, you're going to sell, and that's free silver. So this is just an incredible addition to the game. I actually do a series where every day I have a YouTube short that explains the skills of one champion and, kind of lets you know where I think they would be good in the game or whether I think there's somebody you should just feed off. Again, don't just take my word for it necessarily. Look into that champion if you pulled them, see what you think and what you want out of them. But knowing and understanding the different champions' skills is really, really important, especially in the arena. It can be really important in dungeons if you just keep dying on a certain wave and you can't figure out why. Knowing the skills of those champions that you're up against will really help you out a ton. So thanks, everybody. I'm Zak Gacha back. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope I can help you out more in the future.